Hello, hello. We are back, and boy, am I excited. I saw a couple comments come through, people talking to us. Um, Something I picked out was that somebody was calling me out in the comments for saying wagon instead of hatchback, which is a common problem for me. I make that mistake quite a bit because I just love wagons, and I every time I see like a 2014 hatch, I always call it a wagon. But we're seeing the comments, we're making the changes. So I
It's
am
also kind of a gray area because you have the aforementioned Legacy or Subaru Impreza Outback Sport.
yeah,
Is that a wagon or is that just a hatchback?
exactly. I don't know. I get confused myself, but somebody took it up with me in the comments this weekend, and I just had to make that comment. So um today is going to be a really exciting episode. Dave and I are super excited to jump into the new Gymkhana that came out with Travis Pastrana and the Brat. Super sick video. We actually just watched it again to kind of refresh, and it's just amazing what these cars can do, and I'm super excited to talk about it. And then I was just thinking that we would do a little story time. I had a really crazy interaction because of my Subaru going on probably 10 years ago now. But I just figured it's a story worth telling, and it's one I never told on the podcast before. But yeah, it started with me having my Subaru and somebody buying me breakfast because of it. And then it ended with them pulling a gun on me. So very crazy story. Um so I figure we should jump into that first, just because it's a little. You know what? No, let's start with Gymkhana because I'm too excited. Dave, what a video! I can't even fathom like just everything that went into that, and not just that. It's amazing because you and I were just at Boxer Fest where somebody remade with their son this beautiful Brat in the blue and tan, and they
Oh
had
my God.
a
Yeah.
mini version of it there, and they had the RC version of it there, and it was like so cool. They won a couple awards just for having such an amazing car, and it was
I
like,
may be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure I think they won Travis Pastrana's favorite award.
yeah,
Like,
it was pristine. It was beautiful. I mean, what an amazing car. And then for the Gymkhana to come out and be a Brat is amazing. Like the Brattery. I mean, it's just like the Brats are coming back full force, and I can't tell you, I don't believe any of it, but my phone has just been article after article, just all these notifications of people writing these columns about Subaru bringing the Brat back, and how there's like AI photos of what the new Brat's gonna look like and all this stuff, and like um you know who knows? They may want to get into the small truck market. It's booming right now. There's a lot of JDM imports that are mini trucks that people want, like the K trucks and stuff. There's a lot of um cars like the Ford Maverick and things like that are out.
there's a lot of utility in that
Yeah.
platform. Not
But
everyone
I
needs a full size truck, you know?
yeah. But dude, this is the kind of thing that sells those. When you put out a Gymkhana episode that is like that, and then you announce that you're releasing a new Brat or something, yeah, you're gonna sell a lot of them because I was insane, and it makes people excited about the old cars and the trucks and like how they used to drive them, and just like what they're capable of, and to come full circle is insane. So who knows? I know that they didn't hint at it at the Tokyo Auto Show. They were more focusing on the STI and the EVs, but man, it would be cool if they brought back a Brat. That would just be chef's kiss on everything that they've been
Yeah.
putting out recently. So, um, but yeah, I love that they did in Australia. I love all of the scenes where Travis hydroplanes the lake, and then as we were watching it, Dave was saying that, you know, it was really deep, and I had the first thought of, there's no way, like, he definitely just skid across this like shallow lake, and he's like, no, watch to the end, and sure enough, they show an Outback just sinking to the bottom of this lake. And man, I just can't, again, I just can't even imagine like the speed he must have had and the experience to pull this whole video off. Just insane.
Yeah, I'm just sad the aforementioned Outback had to sacrifice itself to prove the point in a way, because obviously anyone who knows, Outbacks are have a special spot in my heart.
Yeah. I love when they do these videos. There's always a bunch of cameos, a bunch of people from Red Bull. I love when he hit the track with the other cars and he was mid race, you know, like they just do such a good job
Mount
with
Panoramic's such a beautiful scenic track, you know, and I think you know, as you know, that's a whole nother topic, but as time goes on and we start to see a lot of closures of racetracks and things like that, it becomes harder and harder to have spaces where motorsport can happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm finding it so amazing too that Subaru is investing in the community. They are showing that we want to be there for all the Subi events. We want to be previewing new cars at these events. We're going to the Tokyo Auto Show and we're going to show you the STI that you want. We're going to do the next Gymkhana and totally back it. Like they know people want the brat. Let's go make a Brataroo and make a video about it. You know, like they already got the Travis Pastrana's Husk, whatever it's called,
The family Huckster.
the Huckster. You know, like that is an amazing car, and the fact that he has that and brings it to these events, like they're just doing such cool stuff. And like Subaru for a while, I feel like died off, and they just were like, we're not really gonna participate in a lot of these like really cool things. And then it just feels like Project Midnight hit, and they saw the feedback of everybody being like, oh my gosh, what a cool car. They're getting back in it. They're going to be racing again. They're going to be making cool shit. And then here we are. Now it's like, you know, a couple years later or whatever, and like they just are proving that it wasn't just a fluke, or they weren't just putting that out. Like they are on this trajectory, and I just am loving it. I'm loving every second of it. And I think that it's all going to come out very soon, how all of this is going to fare and how the community is going to just rally behind it. And I think that Subaru is really going to see the benefit of that. So,
well, I think it also speaks to Subaru really doubling down and acknowledging that, and not to say, you know, I guess for lack of a better term here, for better or for worse, you know, they're not going to take on the likes of Toyota, you know, or someone like that, but they are every bit a niche company, and if they don't embrace, they could just as well be the next Saab, you know. And I don't want to sound morbid when I say that. I just think it's a reality that I think Subaru understands, that in today's modern landscape, especially with, and this, you know, kind of segues to the whole like electric car market, that they're definitely doubling down on this in a sense, because they're seeing where market shifts are happening and people are becoming on some capacity less or more disinterested with driving and want something that just drives itself. But they very much acknowledge and understand, like you said, showing up to Boxer Fest and other events, and their support behind Gymkhana, and really embracing the culture of what Subaru is every bit a niche kind of company. That's something we're proud of as a small Subaru only shop, you know, that people come to us and they don't just want to go to Bob's Auto Repair on the corner, you know, no offense to Bob. They want to go to a Subaru specialist. They want to make sure their Subaru is taken care of and is loved. No pun intended.
Yeah. It's just like I feel that I've heard it quite a bit, right? That sometimes there's people who you probably know one of them in your life. They say, I'm not really a car guy. I hear this all the time in my shop. People come in, they're like, listen, I don't care about wheels. I don't care about how it sounds. I just use it to get to work. I've never been a car person. I don't really care about how this car is. Like, you know, they're like, obviously I want the maintenance done just so it gets me where I need to be, but like I don't really care. And that's okay. Not everybody has to care about cars. I think that it takes very specific people like you and I and
Yeah.
the rest of us
Well,
to really
well,
care
I think
about
people care
cars.
about cars differently, and to your point, people care about cars even if they don't care about it to be, you know, a unique expression of themselves or a, you know, a modified, you know, overperformer. I guess
Yeah.
you know that's another category, if you will. You know, I think a lot of the category of people, even including my mom, you know, falls in this category. They prioritize reliability, low cost of ownership, and safety. I think
Yeah.
those are three things that I think the vast majority, I think, even the motorsport enthusiast, you know, that wants to modify their car, still has a modicum of safety in that. Yeah, I think we all know, as fun as a kit car would be, you know, to build, and those things aren't the same safety as your WRX, for example, you know.
Well,
And
sorry.
no, I just don't think that you can put these things on the same even keel, if you will.
Well, where I was heading with this was, you know, people who really say that they don't care about cars or whatever, right? I feel like there's a window of opportunity to get them to care about cars. There are things about cars that I feel like the mass majority of people find amazing, right? There's people that they see a Lamborghini and it doesn't matter if they don't like cars, they're going to say, wow, that's a sweet car. And then the guy starts it and it revs and they say, wow, that sounds really good, you know? And it's like, they might not care about cars, but at least that gets them interested. And I feel like what Subaru did with this, with the Brat, is like you're taking a car that nobody, you know, nobody who's into car that isn't into cars would really care about. It's a little pickup, whatever. And you're giving them everything that they need to really get like a fresh take on like, wow, like that's so cool. Like, how did they do that? And like the moves that he's doing in the truck. And like, you know, I just like, for me as a car person, seeing him hit the sequential and seeing him slide across the lake and hit a jump and slide it, you know, 360, I just feel like it's just like
Oh,
those are,
it's visceral for us.
yeah. And so like for me, it's like the people who say stuff like that they don't care or whatever, I'm not a car guy, whatever. If Subaru gets this in front of them, I feel like this is where it begins. This is where you start to get the people who don't care. And this is where you get them excited about something. And like, you know, because like for me and you, right? Like, let's just say, you know, let's say I'm not a golf guy, right? Let's just say. And let's say there's something going on with golf and there's this big tournament and everybody is waiting on this record for, you know, one of the golfers who, you know, let's just say Tiger Woods is playing. I know this is older, but you know, let's just say if he hits this birdie, it's like a big deal, whatever. And like if I watch that clip, I'm like, dang, that was pretty solid. I can't believe he did that. And like, you know, you start to get encompassed in a little bit of the,
That's a valid
wow,
point.
you know, you start to go down the rabbit hole of like, wow, this was really cool. And like, I wonder if there's more stuff like this. And like, that's how social media is. And I think that with Subaru, like, it's so smart of them to put money into this and to back this because it's just starting that chain event for a lot of people who might not care. So
Sure, and I definitely agree with you. I think there's a very modest subsect of people that maybe wouldn't care but would care. There's always going to be, you know, famously the Karens of the world, you know, that are just like, why is he driving that car so fast?
Yeah.
That's reckless. That's a waste of gas. And she's
Yeah.
gonna find every complaint in the video, and miss every point. But no, you're right. That I think that it's absolutely, for lack of a better term, it's a gateway drug in a sense.
Yeah.
It really, it's a jumping off point, and I think that Subaru is acknowledging that. I think look at like even some of the newer EV offerings, the Trail Seeker. They're really
Yeah.
doubling down on that. And we talked about this on I think an episode or two ago, where they're really doubling down on the Wilderness brand. From example, that's a whole, let's call it one directive they're going, where they're saying, you know what, we see you off-roaders, or rather the overlanders, which I think is a better description, because it's not really full off-roading, and there's plenty of, Subarus that have a winch setup and you name it. But for the majority, I think, and that was something that we tried to embody with one of our recent build of our lifted Outback, was trying to say, hey, look, this is something that can get you to 90% of the trailheads, camping spots, reliably, safely, and it's going to get better gas mileage. It's going to handle better on the road, and not come with, the intention to getting stuck. I always say there's a subsect of guys that go out, and, I've been there, where, you go out there and you kind of want to push the limits and see what you can do. But I think the vast majority would rather just get to camp safely with their family and have a great weekend.
Yeah.
And I think Subaru is acknowledging that and going, hey, we can do the overlanding, cater to that as much as, like you said, with the Project Midnight. I think that was every bit of jumping off point, I think, to say it best, for them to kind of gauge interest and go, what will people think? Because you're right, they'd been kind of almost semi-dormant in the motorsport segment, and I think people were just kind of waiting to see what Subaru was going to do, and whether or not they were going to kill the STI, which we now know they subsequently kind of did. But I stand firm in my McRib analogy that the McRib is going to come back, and so will the STI. So
what's interesting too is that Subaru really didn't have to compete, because things like Grid Life started to take off, and there's a lot of Subarus that are competing in Grid Life. Like, the community understands how good these cars are, and they are racing them without the backing of Subaru. It's unnecessary. They're going to just go do it anyway.
It kind of reminds me of a thought of, like, it'd be like Mazda somehow getting rid of the Miata, or the MX-5 or whatever it is now. It's at that point where they acknowledge that, there's only a small subsect, but there's a pretty modest subsect of people that are willing to buy those cars because they know what they are. It's a purity thing.
Yeah. Well, Dave, something else I wanted to share. Big milestone. I'm going to see if I can get this to not blow everybody's eardrums out, but we're going to put some cheering in there. Are you ready? All right, too long. Subaru Mechanics has hit 300,000 members. I don't know how I forgot to mention this in the beginning of the episode, but absolutely blown away. I cannot even believe that we have done this. 300,000 members. Like, I remember when I was trying my hardest, right? I was back in, this is going like 10, 12 years ago now. When I first created the group, I was in Garden State Subies, and, I was like trying to like compete with them. They had like, I think Garden State Subies had like 20,000 members or something at the time. And I was like, hey guys, I got 8,000. Hey guys, I got 12,000. I remember when I passed Garden State Subies, And then I remember like within a week going from like 20 to 80 or some crazy like jump that happened. And I was just like, oh my gosh. Like at that point I was just like, I can't even believe what's happening. Like the group
Yeah.
just started the group just started growing and growing, and people
Well,
needed help, and it was just like,
and the fact
you
that
know.
you're the group is everywhere. That's one of my favorite parts about the group and being involved is getting to see people from other places with problems,
Yeah.
and getting to humbly learn a lot of times because there's a lot of other markets that I don't think that we in the United States here are accustomed to. And so getting to learn from these other markets and see what other people are contributing has helped us tremendously.
Yeah. I just am like amazed and blown away, and like our team is amazing.
Agreed.
I anybody who was on our team that wanted some t-shirts, I sent out just to make it kind of a memorable time. And I think that like I want to do something for the group, and so I kind of am deciding that every month I'm able to see whoever the top contributor is in the group, and I think I'm going to send them a sponsor like item or a sponsor gift. So that's kind of what I'm thinking for right now. But I just really want to commemorate it and really give back to the community. We keep trying to give back. We're
Yeah,
trying to do things for the group. And I think that we're just going to keep rolling with it. But like, yeah, I mean, we're just so excited. It's been such an amazing journey so far. And I just
definitely.
want to thank everybody who's listening, everybody in the group. Please, like, we just appreciate you guys, and we appreciate you guys keeping it super cool in the group, watching us here. Like, just, I just don't even know what to say because it's just so mind blowing.
Sure.
But
And
I wanted,
for anyone who's wondering, we should also add quick note that the sponsors obviously will be excluded from that category because there are some weeks or months where we might be the top contributor in a good
oh,
way.
yeah. Yeah, we I there's been a couple people in the group that have been consistent for a long time. They constantly are helping people, and they're always
Agreed.
the most consistent. And like the fact is, I want to be able to benefit those people and give back for those that are helping the most. I feel like they deserve it. So, um, keep an eye out for that. I'm thinking we'll start it in the new year, and we'll just go 12 months and see how it goes, and we'll just kind of
Mm-hmm.
go from there. So. Um, but I did want to kind of go over quite an interesting story that I don't think you've heard, Dave. Um, I'm gonna need a beverage for this one.
I love these.
So I'm gonna preface this with a couple things. One, I have worked as a private investigator for most of my life. My dad has his own company, and so when it comes to handling certain situations, even as a kid, I mean, I was doing PI work helping my dad since I was 10 years old. So like I've always known to like keep my cool and handle things in the right way, and like as far as I know, but this is one of those situations where I feel like I was trying to keep it cool, but my judgment was a little off because I was not putting the pieces together of what was happening in the moment. Um but very weird situation that happened. um the other thing I want to preface is that if you are ever meeting anybody in public, um be wary of them. Just, you know even if you're going to pick up parts or whatever. I know, Dave, you've probably also been in these situations. I've pulled up to people's houses looking to buy wheels, and they wouldn't come out of the house, and they're like, oh, my wheels are in my bedroom. And I'm like, why would you knew I was coming? I drove an hour to get here. Why are they in your bedroom? Like, I've had
I'll
a
just
guy.
add go with a friend.
Yeah.
I went with one of my employees just recently. He asked, he was like, "Hey, I'm going to buy this car from a guy on Facebook Marketplace. Would you mind coming with me?" And I was like, "Absolutely."
Yeah.
And just because, not saying the guy was overly sketchy, but just, he kind of got a little bit of a vibe, which can happen. And
Yeah.
so you're right. I always say, I tell everyone, I encourage everybody. It doesn't matter. Not simply, um, based on someone being sketchy or not. Just
Yeah.
always good to go with somebody, especially if you
Yeah.
have cash in hand. Just
Yeah.
saying.
So this was a very random thing that happened. It was a normal weekday. It was like a Tuesday or something. And at the time, I was in my first year of college. I was like 18, and my girlfriend was in high school still, like the weird age gap right there. And so, in the morning, so okay, at 18 years old, I was essentially like thrown out of the house, and I was living with my girlfriend at the time. We were in this town that's like kind of a country-ish town, and I had an '02 silver bug eye with RPF ones, gold. Thing was mint. um and yeah, I had gotten into Subarus. I had a couple at the time. This was like one of my last Subarus that I had at that time, like one of my last '02s. And we went out to go get breakfast before I dropped her at school. So we go to this McDonald's, and we're just like at the counter getting something to eat, and out of nowhere this guy walks into McDonald's, and I believe inebriated. I mean, he seemed I don't know if he was fully drunk or not, but he was definitely at the bar all night and then at McDonald's at like 7 a.m. So make of that what you will. But he wanders up. We already ordered. And right as I'm going to pay, he's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa." He's like, "I'm going to pay this bill." And I was like, "What?" And I was like, "Dude, it's okay." Like, "No, no, no, it's okay." He's like, "No, no, no." He's like, I want to buy you breakfast." And I was like very confused. And my girlfriend was looking at me. We were both like, "What is happening?" And he was like, "Yeah." He's like, "I want to buy you breakfast because," he's like, "I'm a big Subaru guy." He's like, "I saw the bug eye and I love it." And he's like, "I really want to buy you breakfast." And I was like, "Okay, like whatever." I was like, "Yeah, man, I appreciate it. That's cool, no big deal." Then the food comes out, and he takes the trays and he walks to a corner in the McDonald's and like basically makes us sit down with him. So, at this point, we're just kind of playing along. I'm trying to like just, make small talk. So we sit down and we're eating with him. And Dave, let me know when the red flags start going off. We'll we'll get there. Um he starts telling me about his life. He starts walking me
Mm-hmm.
through. Mind you, I never learned this guy's last name. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like it's very you know, I'm not doxing or anything, but this guy's name was
Mm-hmm.
Steve. And Steve had, pulled us to the side, and he was like, "Hey, I just want to let you know, I thought you guys had a cool Subaru." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm divorced and I have a kid and whatever." I was like, "Oh, that's cool, man. We're talking." And then he goes, "Yeah," he goes, "Let me show you this video." Shows me a video of somebody who is in the middle of the street. There's like a security camera, like on a building, and it's somebody in the middle of the street, and they get hit by a car. They do two flips in the air and they land on their head. And he goes, "That's me." And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah." He goes, so I'm like, "Okay." So he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I left the bar one night," and he goes, "I got hit by a car from Massachusetts. I did two flips in the air. I hit my head on the ground." And he goes, "Now my skull is cracked." And
Oh.
he said that um, there's a procedure that you have to do to seal a crack in your head. I don't know if this is real, but this is what he told me he had to do. He said when it first happened, he went to the ER. Somebody brought him there, and they have to give you a shot in your butt every hour that seals the crack in your head. And then he said it was every other hour. And then he said after that, it becomes every day, and then it's every other day, and eventually every 6 months or whatever, they give you the shot. I don't understand that at all, but whatever. You know, we just keep eating and whatever. And I'm like, hey, man, I really got to get her over there to the school. Like, you know, it was nice meeting you. Everything's cool. And he was like, oh, he's like, well, let me walk out there. I want to see the Subaru again. I'm like, okay. So we walk out there, you know, he's like, yeah, I walked here. He goes, I don't have my Subaru. I walked to the bar last night. So like, I don't know where my Subaru is, but he's like, I parked it somewhere. I'm like, oh. So he comes over to the car and he's checking it out and whatever. And he's like, hey man, he's like, can you do me a favor? He's like, I really just need a ride home. And he's like, yeah, you know, he's like, he goes, I don't live far, but he's like, yeah. He's like, I know that you need to I know you need to drop her off, but he's like, can you give me a ride home after that? So I'm like, okay. So Steve gets in the car, right? He's in the passenger seat. My girlfriend's in the back seat. We drive to the school. We pull up out front. Nobody's around. It's just us because I don't know. I forget if we were too early or too late or what, but there was just nobody there. So we pull up. She gets out. She walks in. And Steve in the passenger seat at the school says, hey, man, want to see something really cool? And I'm like, what? And he pulls out a Magnum out of his waistband. And I, in that moment, was like, you know, when the hair on your neck stands up and you get this feeling of like I literally was like, yeah, I was like, we are at a school right now, and this guy that I don't know is in my car and just pulled this thing out. And he goes, yeah, he goes, you know, my whole family's really into guns, and like we're big, you know, on that.
That's cool.
My family. And he's like, yeah, he goes, you know, this is a newer one I got. He's like, it's really cool, like whatever. And I was like, oh wow, yeah,
Put it
that's
away,
cool,
please.
you know. So I was like, yeah, exactly. I was like, hey man, I was like, you really shouldn't take that out here. Like that's a bad idea. So I have found in my life that I have never had a problem when I just play it cool, right? You know, this is a guy that I don't want to anger, that I don't want to like, you know, have an issue with.
That's fair.
So so I said, where do you live? He goes, oh, I'll show you where to go. We start driving to his house. Whatever, he's telling me which places to go. And we get to this main road, and then he goes, oh, make a left in here. The place he's telling me to make a left is a bank. So Steve takes me to a bank. I know. I just like, I hope we're not
Jesus
blowing
Christ.
eardrums out.
Sorry. We can filter that down.
So Steve literally takes me to a bank, and he goes, pull up to the drive-through. He goes, I'm gonna jump out and I'm gonna go up to the ATM. He goes, I just gotta pull some money out. I'm like, okay. I pull up and he hops out. He's getting money out of the ATM, and then he gets back in the car. I was like, okay, no big deal. Let's keep moving. So he gets in the car, we start driving, and he goes, yeah, he goes, my house is over here somewhere. He goes, let me just, you know, whatever. He's showing me where to go. And I remember we pull up on this hill, and he goes, park across the street. There's like a cutout, like, you know, when you have like a pull off kind of, and it's all like hay and stuff. So I pull over, and he goes, you know, I'm not sure if I remember where my key is. So he said, just give me a second. He said, I'm going to just go see if my spare key is there. So I'm like, okay. I see Steve run across the street. I see him pop the window open and crawl through the window of this house. I am in this
Leave.
moment.
Leave.
So,
Just
so,
leave. Just leave.
so in this moment,
Steve's
right?
out of the car. I would leave.
Yeah. In this moment, right? I'm thinking to myself, this guy lives in the town I
Leave
live.
Steve.
I'm thinking
I'm
he
going to make a
knows.
shirt now that says
Yeah.
Leave Steve.
Yeah. I'm thinking. So this is my thought process, right? I'm in the car. I remember sitting there thinking, okay, this is not Steve's house, and I remember
It's not
thinking,
Steve. No, that was
yeah,
not Steve's fucking house.
yeah. But I remember
I'll just say it.
thinking,
That was not Steve.
I remember thinking, like, why did I buy such a noticeable car? Because I'm thinking to myself, like, he knows me and my girlfriend. He knows where she goes to school. He knows my car. I was like, he lives in this town. I was like, I don't want to have another run-in with this guy. So I was like, if I bail out now, right? Like, who knows? He's unhinged. He might come for me. I don't know. So I end up sitting there, right? And the next thing, 5 minutes later, I see Steve crawl through the window of the house again, shuts the window, and he just comes walking over to my car. Well, jogging. He was jogging over.
Yeah, I was going to say, he wasn't walking.
He gets in my car and he goes, this is my buddy's house. He goes, I just left my phone here. And he shows me this phone. And I'm like, okay. So then I go, Steve, where do you live? And he's like, yeah, I really don't want to go home yet. And he goes, where do you live? And I was like, oh my God. So
you had Steve out of your car. I'm just going to say it. You had Steve out of your car and you let him back in your car.
So I, this became like one of those, like, I just kept saying yes, waiting for this to end. And it didn't. And so I told him, I said,
life lesson. Sometimes you need to say no.
Yeah. So I told him, I said, listen, like, we are 30 minutes away from where my parents are. And I said, I have to. So I said, I have to run home to my parents' house, which is 30 minutes away. So I was like, I mean, if you live locally, like, there's no point in you coming with me. And he was like, well, there's a mall next to your parents' house. And he was like, maybe I could, he's like, can you just bring me to the mall? And I was like, dude, I was like, again, I was like, all right, if that's the end of this, I was like, if you just need to go to the mall, I was like, I'll just give you a ride. We'll go to the mall. So we go to the mall. I take him 30 minutes away. We pull in and he's like, hey man, he's like, I really need you to come in with me. And I was like, well, Steve, I got stuff to do, man. I gotta go. And he's like, it'll only take 5 minutes, but he's like, you need to come in with me. And so I didn't know what to do, but I was like, I guess we're going in the mall. So we go in and we get to this machine that's one of those, like, slip your phone in the machine and it, like, sells it for cash.
Mm-hmm.
And I see Steve pull out the phone that he pulled out of this house and he puts it in the machine and he gets like $100 or whatever. And he's like, all right. He's like, I'm all good now. And then he's like, he goes, where are you going now? I was like, Steve, I'm going to my parents' house. Like, I just don't, like, I don't know what else you want from me. And he's like, all right. He's like, yeah, my boy's going to come pick me up or whatever. And he's like, I told him where I'm at. And so.
With what phone? The phone you just pawned?
Yeah. So this is the part I have to preface, that I was very young and stupid. And I thought that this all was going very well because I was just playing along and he thought we were friends.
And in hindsight, looking back, you go, that was the sketchiest moment of your life, probably.
Dave, we're not done. So I
Wait, you didn't
knew.
leave Steve? Why did you not leave Steve at the mall? I would have left Steve at the mall. Jesus
So
Christ.
so he told me that his buddy wasn't coming to pick him up for a while. So he was like, yeah, it's probably going to be about an hour. And he's like, I'm just going to come with you. And I was like, well, I knew my parents were not home. So I was like, you want to come with me? And he's like, yeah, he goes, I'm going to come with you. And I was like, okay. Dude, when I tell you, I think about this all the time because this was just such an insane, like, I don't know what I was thinking. I was just
Did you take Steve home?
I brought Steve home.
Oh my God, you brought Steve home.
So I bring Steve to my parents' house and I immediately felt uncomfortable, right? So before I get there, before this is all shaking out, I texted my best friend and he lived down the street from my parents. And I said, hey man, I'm going to be at my parents' house. I was like, I need you to come over now. And he was like, what's up? And I was like, no questions. I was like, you need to be here now. So he gets in his car, he comes over, and, he pulls in right after I pull in. And so we all walk into my parents' house, and Steve's on my couch, and we're all just hanging out. And, my buddy that was there with me is also like, somebody who gets along with people like Steve. He likes guns. He's into, rap and all the stuff that Steve was into. And they were just kind of like getting along. And so at that point, Steve pulled out his Magnum again. And my best friend looked at me with a face that I will never forget. But I remember him, because he kind of knew the story. We were kind of talking about it with him about how we met that day and how, the series of events that were unfolding. And as he started to get more of the story, he started to get a little bit more concerned, as you would think. And,
good friend.
And when the gun came out, I just remember he looked at Steve and he just kind of looked at me and he was like, oh my God, like, I cannot believe this.
Steve is unhinged.
Yeah. But dude, in about 20 minutes, his buddy showed up. His buddy came in, we shook hands, we met, everything was cool. He met my buddy and he left. And
but he knows where you live.
Yeah, so
where your parents live.
So this, I end up, Steve leaves. I end up telling my girlfriend everything that was happening, and just kind of explaining how the day unfolded, which she couldn't believe. She was like, I cannot believe after I got out of the car, all this unfolded. And so this is like maybe 2 or 3 years later, and I see a Facebook, somebody posted on Facebook locally in the town, and they said, does anybody know where this guy Steve is? And they had the full name and everything. And they said Steve was caught shooting someone and is now wanted for murder. And my girlfriend and I saw the picture they posted and immediately knew it was him. And so we were like, oh my gosh, it's him. And so we were texting with his family that was looking for him. And we were just telling them like, yeah, we ran into this guy a couple of years ago. Like, this is insane. Like, he was pulling guns out then, So like, I just was like, I cannot even, like, But that was the story of Steve, dude. I've had that story for so long since it happened, and
I'll never trust a Steve.
I knew that it was gonna continue to get worse as it went on, but I just couldn't find the reasoning to stop it because I didn't want to cause a problem. And it was like, you know what I mean? Like, I just feel like I played it.
I know what you mean, but at the same time, when he went through the window, that was your opportunity. I'm just gonna say it. He was out of the car. Okay, you made some bad decisions, some bad choices. He was in your car. You got him out of the car. You saw him climb through a window of a house.
Yeah.
Okay, just end it there. Like that. That's where I would have been like, bye, Steve.
Yeah.
Sure, you got my license plate, but don't care.
I have to tell you guys, I have never told my parents this. I never plan to. I hope they don't watch this because I know that if they ever hear this, they're going to lose it. And I don't want them to know this happened because I just like it's like 10 years later and
Are we starting a new segment of Subaru confessions? The things that happened, because it's Subaru related. You were in a Subaru, and this all happened to you. If you were just driving a Toyota Corolla, it wouldn't have been the same. You know,
that's what kicked it all off. He bought me breakfast because he saw me get out of my Subaru.
Because this, and I don't know that I would have taken him up on that. And maybe there was a different time when I probably would have, but
you gotta understand
I can afford
that
breakfast. I mean, breakfast is what, $12? Like,
you know what? You gotta understand that, like, I can tell you in the moment, I remember me being caught off guard by somebody grabbing my arm and being like, hey, let me buy you breakfast, and I was like, who are you, and in this town, right, I did know a lot of people and a lot of Subaru people as well, so like it wasn't so weird to me that he was going to buy me breakfast, but what was weird was that he was so insistent on it because I said no twice. And then he kept pushing. And now I got the McDonald's lady who's like, who's paying for this? I got all these people listening and watching this go down, and he's clearly drunk. So I just was like, you know what? Sure, dude. If it gets this to end, like, buy the breakfast. But then what really caught me.
It snowballed.
What caught me is I didn't expect him to take the trays because I went to reach for my tray and he took it and he ran to a table and was like, you're sitting with me. And so at that point I was like, so anybody who's listening to this,
don't let Steve in your car.
Read the signs. Understand that everything to do with the Subaru could be a gateway. You don't know. but that's why it's such a it's such a wild time in my life because I had a lot of Subaru stuff. Like I said, I went to a house where a guy had wheels in his bedroom and he refused to come outside. I was calling him and everything, and then finally he was like, yeah, that you got to come in and get them. And like, to me, I was like, this is sketchy as hell. I drove an hour into Pennsylvania to come get these wheels, and like, but that's how some of this stuff is. So like, I was pretty used to being in uncomfortable situations and being like, it always works out, And so I feel like with Steve, I was like, it kept getting more and more uncomfortable to the point where I was like, this needs to end or it's not going to end well, And so, I want you guys, if you guys listen to this, whoever you are, I know that we have like 55 listeners that are like, this is your main show. If you listen to us, I want you to comment on this video in particular. I want you to go on YouTube or Spotify and tell me how you would have handled Steve. I want to know at what point you would have walked away from this situation, at what point you would have realized that this was not going well. And I'm just curious at your take on this because I have had a lot of feedback on this over the years and a lot of people that have given their opinions on what I should have done in this situation. And I never knew what the right time to walk away was. I thought that being at the school and pulling out the Magnum was a big oh my gosh. But like, did I walk away before that or should I have just dropped it there? Does that coming into the picture now make it that I can't just walk away? You know what I mean? Like, I just didn't know what to do. But yeah. So that was everything. So please comment, tell me what your view is, tell me if I'm an idiot because I know. But yeah, I just wanted to share that because it's really a special piece of Subaru history for me. Um,
Oh
Dave,
yeah.
Dave, have you ever been in any sketchy situations with your Subarus?
I think the sketchiest situation I ever found myself in was infamously, I was driving to um, meet with my sister. She rented a really nice Airbnb in Lake Tahoe with a bunch of friends. And I was going to drive out there from Colorado to meet her for Thanksgiving. And me and my roommate drove out. And on the way, we had a crossroad and it said, hey, this is the more direct route, but this is about the same, maybe an hour or two and longer, and it's the scenic route. Well, I'd never been that far west, so I said, you know what? Let's take the scenic route. Big mistake. Turns out my alternator decided to die, and I'm talking, we turned off accessories. I was actually driving with a, no exaggeration, with a Streamlight Stinger, for anyone who knows, flashlight hanging out the window with no headlights on,
Oh my
driving down the
gosh.
highway at 80 miles an hour because I thought that was a good idea. Talk about dumb ideas. But luckily, when we broke down, we weren't too far from a town. However, we had zero cell reception. Nothing. So after about 2 hours or so, I decided that, well, it's only 14 miles to the next town, to start walking. So I left my roommate in the car, and it was during winter, it was snowing. And so my roommate stayed in the car and with my dog, because I couldn't bring my dog out with me in a winter blizzard in the middle of Utah. And so they huddled down the car with blankets and everything like that. And I took off on foot. No exaggeration, wearing flip-flops. That's all I had at the time.
Oh my gosh.
So proceeded to walk 14 miles down the highway. I didn't make all of 14. I made it about like 7. And a state trooper pulled me over.
Oh my gosh.
And he's like, what are you doing out here? And I'm like, well, my car's broke down right, a couple miles down the road. He said, that's funny. Is your roommate named Travis? And I go, well, yeah. He's like, your roommate and your dog are in my car. And I'm like, oh. He's like, I stopped. I saw them. The nearest town is still another like 4 miles. I was like, well, I've been trying to hitchhike. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to walk this whole distance. He's like, you realize it's Thanksgiving Eve? No one's stopping with their families on a road trip and picking up a strange hitchhiker on the side of the road in Utah.
That's fair.
I'm not allowed to do this, but I've already talked to my dispatch. They've given me permission. I can give you a ride to town. Because if I leave you, it's, safety. So I'll give you a ride to town. So he drives us to town, drops us off at the first place, which happens to be a casino. Because everything in that town was a casino and a hotel. So we walk into the casino hotel, and sure enough, we're trying to figure things out, and we walk up to the hostess, and we're like, hey, we're broke down here, down the road. What do we do? And she said the most infamous line I'll never forget. And we were, for anyone who wants to know, look it up. We were in Ely, Nevada, ELY. Ely, Nevada. You break down there and you are pretty much screwed because the nearest town is 200 miles away. We looked at her and we said, how do we get out of Ely? We need to get a car part and get out of here. She looked at us and said, honey, no one gets out of Ely. There have been people living here their entire lives. They can't get out of here. And we're like, oh God, this is not a good sign. So long and short, we proceeded to meander around the casino. I was actually looking on my phone trying to find any auto parts store that was open on Thanksgiving Eve within a 200-mile radius that had an alternator for a 1996 Subaru Outback. Found one 179 miles away in Elko. So next step was finding someone to give us a ride because I looked up Ubers and Uber wouldn't take us. They just said not possible.
I was going to ask
We
you,
don't
Dave,
get.
are you still in Ely? Did you end up living there and now you can never leave?
Thank goodness, no. Um, but yeah, there's a funny end of the story too about that where so my roommate at one point comes up. He's been, I'm looking. I finally found I'm trying to find an alternator. He comes up. He says, "Hey, I found a guy. He's willing to drive us. This guy right here." And I'm like, "Hey, hi, guy." And this guy is pissed drunk, and he's like, "I'll drive you." And I'm like, I look at my roommate. I go, "He ain't driving us nowhere. He peed himself. Like he's not driving us anywhere." So this is the epitome of how drunk these people were. These were people at the casino. No offense, on Thanksgiving Eve.
Yeah.
They had nowhere else to be. So finally, we found one person that was pretty drunk, but he said a really convincing thing. My brother-in-law is going to pick me up here in about an hour. He doesn't drink. He'll drive you. Okay. So we waited around, and sure enough, brother-in-law comes up. Hey, I know it's a weird proposition. And for anyone who wants to know what it costs to get basically a impromptu, unofficial Uber from Ely, Nevada to Elko, Nevada, at 2 o'clock or 3:30 in the morning, about 170 miles each way, it costs you about $700. That's the answer.
Wow.
So I offered him $700 to drive me there to the auto parts store and back to my car. Mapped it all out.
That's a good deal. I would take that. I would do it for less.
Sure enough, he's like, "Well, if you don't mind, like, I gotta drop my brother-in-law off because he's obviously drunk. He's about 2 miles down the road, and then we can go. Let's hop in the truck. Let's go." So he drove us the 170
how many miles?
170 miles or so to Elko, Nevada, to the O'Reillys in Elko, Nevada. Shout out to them.
Was that like 2 hours? No.
Yeah, about 2.5 hours or so. Yep. And then another 2.5 hours back to my car. And it was snowing at the time. It was just absolutely coming down on the way back. And he goes, "Well, I'm gonna, I don't have to, but I'm gonna wait and make sure you guys are all right." My roommate looks at him. He goes, "You don't know my roommate, Dave. He'll have that alternator in fucking 5 minutes." Sure enough, I had that alternator in 5 minutes, which for anyone who doesn't know, a Subaru alternator is the easiest thing ever. So I had that alternator and he was like, "Wow, I'm impressed." Fired it right up because we had a jump box, but it didn't really help any good when we had a dead alternator.
Yeah.
So got it fired up and we made it about, what do I want to say, probably 8 o'clock in the morning on Thanksgiving Day. So
good deal.
Yep. That was my infamous Subaru story, and ironically, it's something. The end of the story is it's funny. Every time I take a cross country road trip or across a couple states, I've done this, and I apologize to any of my parts vendors in advance for admitting this. But I ordered an alternator for my car, whatever car it is I'm driving, and I put it in the back, and I take it in the trunk. I've never needed one once, but it's just something I cannot drive across country without, is having a spare alternator ever since that moment. And the other adage I'll say is I will never take the scenic route again.
Yeah. Hey, peace of mind. Yeah, man. I've been in so many situations with cars and stuff that I just feel like you almost become numb to it. You know that either something's going to go wrong or you're going to meet some totally weird people or like you're going to be stranded or, it's just like, I feel like it's never ending. Like I've just had so many interactions with stuff like that.
Well, cars will do that. They're such a part of our lives,
Yeah. I mean, dude, I remember I went out to some sketchy part of Pennsylvania and I went to go look at a 300ZX that this guy was selling. And he wouldn't let me drive the car because he kept wanting to show me the cool tricks he could do in the car. But he wanted me to buy it. But he kept wanting to show me the cool bunny hop that was on his street that he could hit at 65 miles an hour. And, he wanted to show me all of the cool stuff he could do with the car. And I was like, I will not buy this car. at any cost. you know, um, and then I've run into some other issues with parts. Like, I met a guy who he was parting out this Subaru, and he had powder coated engine pieces that I wanted. And I said, are you available for me to come get him? And he's just said, the car is in the street, and you got to just come and pick it right off the car in the street. And when I got there was 3 other people picking stuff off the car, so I'm just battling in there trying to get the manifold off and everything else that I was taking. And then he had a jar in the car that just said, leave the money we talked about. It's just so ridiculous. So like, you just never know what you're gonna get. I feel like these parts and the people you meet along the way and just all of this is just so insane. So I feel like at least when it comes to picking up parts and things of that nature, you just need to really be careful. I
Yes.
I've even gone I went out to Pennsylvania again to pick up purple RPF ones. I was doing this is a good one for you, Dave. You're gonna love this. I went out, I was on the wheel. By the way, wheel swap Facebook groups used to be amazing. Now, not so much. But they used to be amazing. I used to love them. I had a Subaru that had these like BBS reps that came on this car. They were so junky. They had that like 3-piece wheel look to them. They were like, I think on Amazon they were like $50 a rim or something. And I had a guy that I posted these on the wheel swap page, forgot about it. It's like 6 months later. This guy hits me up out of nowhere. He's like, hey man, I got a car that I have brand new rims on, but I can't get to work. He said, I'm rubbing, so I need to get new rims so I can go to work. He said, if you can come here and swap wheels with me, I'll give them to you for free, like straight swap. I was like, this is the best deal ever. They were Z wheels. They were bright orange with a silver, like a chrome lip to them. And it was on a slammed Civic, like slammed to the ground. And of course he couldn't drive it. The thing was rubbing like crazy. So I show up in this parking lot in the middle of like, one of the bad towns. And, I'm in this parking lot, jacking my car up, pulling the wheel off, jacking his car up, pulling the wheel off. And I go to switch the wheels in the parking lot. And then I realize that my lug nuts don't fit on his wheels. So now
Oh.
I have to swap every single lug nut on top of the wheels. And I think you know what it was? I brought one jack. So I would jack my car up, and then I don't remember how I did it. I just remember it took forever. It took forever. I just was switching one lug nut at a time with the wheels and switching everything over. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And then I ended up trading those rims for a brand new set of Cosmos XTRs in bronze that this guy
Okay.
out of like Staten Island had. They were on his Lexus, and I got those, and I was so sad because they didn't fit on my car. And I was away at the time. I had my buddy go pick them up, so I didn't get to check the fitment, but I just wanted them.
Yeah.
So they showed up. They fit on the car, but they were way too big. It just wasn't going to work. So then I was like, well, I need to get rid of these. I'm going to ruin them if I keep them. And I put them back up for trade. And again, another trade. No money involved in any of this. Another trade. This guy hits me up. He's like, I'll actually pay you. I think it was like, I want to say it was like $500 cash or something. He's like, I'll pay you $500 plus I got these purple RPF ones. He's like, come get them. And I ended up running the ugliest RPF ones ever you can imagine. I had to go to this kid's house in PA, and he was just sitting in his garage with a bunch of friends, and they were all drinking, and the wheels were just in the middle of the room. And they were like, yep, that's them. And I was like, okay. And the money was just sitting on top, and I just loaded them in my car and I left. So, you just, anybody who does this stuff, just beware. just you never know. You're gonna have some crazy stories, I'm sure, but don't deal with a Steve. Avoid Steve
Yeah.
at all costs.
Avoid
Um,
Steve. Like you said, tell us your favorite stories in the comments. That being said, I'll reiterate: always bring somebody with you, um, just because you never know.
yeah,
You never know.
yeah, and I just hope that you guys enjoyed that story because it has haunted me for a long time. So I'm curious to see what you guys write in the
Watch out
comments.
for Steve.
Thank you guys again for 300,000 members in Super Mechanics. It's
Yes.
insane. Dave and I are just loving it. We're going to be doing a ton of stuff for you guys. Again, we're going to be back at Boxer Fest this year to try to rep for the group and do bigger things and
Yes.
more. We're going to try to do some giveaways.
We will
I'm
have our
definitely,
tent this year or next year.
yeah, I'm definitely going to post in the group. I'm definitely gonna do the giveaway situation, and then we're also
Yes.
gonna do a cover photo contest again, which we did before. It was really popular, and something new that Dave and I are gonna try to do. We haven't figured out the logistics yet, but we have the option to live stream and have you guys call in with questions, whether it be for us or be for about your car or whatever. And we can always pop the diagrams or the pictures or the videos up on the screen and we can kind of go over it live. Um, I think it would be a super useful tool for you guys and anybody who is trying to get questions about their car answered. And so I think it would be great. And we're just figuring out the best time. I was thinking Mondays, but we'll update that in the group as well so that you guys know when that's going to happen and you guys can come
Yeah.
talk with us and it'll be live and it'll be great. So
That's another thing. Let us know down in the comments what you guys think about like timing. You know, like what day of the week, what time you think would be optimum. Again, we can't guarantee we can make it happen. You know, but at the same time, Patrick and I are very much committed to this group and this podcast and wanting to make things um, as conducive as we can, to say the least.
yeah. And we just appreciate you know, Spotify gave us 2025 hit show. So I think that speaks volumes for you guys and the following and what we've accomplished so far. And it just gives us
Thank you.
that stride to keep going and make it even better than it has been. So we're getting better with the editing. We are figuring everything out and we appreciate you guys for hanging in there with us these last couple weeks. But we're going to be more consistent with the Friday releases. So we love all of you. We will see you again on the next one. Peace.